quiet Sunday night when I was driving home after a visit to a friend's house. The road was empty, and I was enjoying the peace until I noticed a black sedan tailing me. At first, I thought nothing of it, just another driver, right? But as I made a few turns, the sedan followed. Then another turn, and it stayed right behind me. I wasn't sure if I was just being paranoid, but the car was staying so close, it felt deliberate. My stomach twisted with unease, and I started to speed up, hoping to lose it. But the sedan accelerated with me, staying just close enough that I could still see the headlights in my rearview mirror. I made several more turns, trying to shake it off, but it mirrored everyone. That's when the fear really started to set in. I was alone, far from home, and I didn't know what to do. My heart raced as I scanned the area for something, anything, that might help me get away. Finally, I decided to pull into a brightly lit gas station, hoping that the stranger would lose interest. The sedan followed and parked a few spaces behind me. My hands shook as I glanced through the rearview mirror, and there in the driver's seat was a man, just staring at me. I grabbed my purse, jumped out of the car, and sprinted into the gas station, asking the attendant to call the police. The man stayed in his car, motionless. I kept my eyes on him as I waited, trying to calm my racing heart. When the police finally arrived, the sedan was gone. They didn't find anything suspicious in the area, but weeks later, I found out that the man who had been following me was a convicted stalker. He had been known for following women like that, waiting for the right moment to strike. I'll never forget that feeling, of knowing that if I hadn't pulled into that gas station, I might not have made it home that night. It was just a typical Friday night. I was 17, babysitting for a family that lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood. The kids were sound asleep, and I was watching TV in the living room, enjoying the peace and quiet of the house. The soft hum of the television was the only sound in the room, until the house phone rang. This was weird because the family I was babysitting for would always call me on my personal phone in case they wanted to talk. I picked up the receiver, expecting it to be a wrong number or a telemarketer, but what I heard on the other end sent chills down my spine. Static filled the line for a moment, and then I heard a soft, distorted voice. "Have you checked the children?" The voice didn't sound anything like the parents. It was a stranger. I froze, my heart pounding. I thought maybe it was just a prank call, so I hung up and tried to brush it off. But the phone rang again, just a few minutes later. I picked it up, and the same voice came through, clearer this time. "Have you checked the children?" My blood ran cold. I immediately stood up and went to check on the kids. They were both fine, still sleeping soundly in their beds. But as I returned to the living room, the phone rang again. This time, the voice wasn't just distorted. It was cold, almost mocking. "Have you checked the children?" By now, I was beyond scared. I called the police, telling them about the strange phone calls and the feeling that something was wrong. The dispatcher stayed calm, telling me to leave the house immediately and wait outside. I grabbed my purse and ran out of the house, not looking back until I was safely outside. The police arrived soon after, and when they searched the house, they found a homeless-looking man hiding in the attic. He had been there the entire time, watching me. He had been using the phone line to torment me, waiting until I was vulnerable. He confessed to his crimes, but didn't say exactly what his intentions were. I don't know what would have happened if we had encountered each other. It's terrifying to think how close I came to disaster that night. I had just finished work around midnight and was walking home, as usual. The streets were empty, save for a few scattered streetlights, casting long shadows on the pavement. I didn't think much of it at first, but then I noticed someone walking behind me. I tried to ignore it, but when I glanced over my shoulder, the figure quickly turned away. I wasn't sure if I was just being paranoid, so I kept walking, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I glanced back again, and the figure was still there, trailing me at a distance. Now my nerves were starting to get the best of me. I kept walking, trying to remain calm, but no matter how many times I looked behind me, the figure stayed just close enough that I could see the faint outline of a person. Suddenly, I decided to cross the street, hoping to get some distance, but the figure crossed too, staying right on my tail. I was starting to panic now. My steps quickened, and the figure did the same. I made a sharp turn down a side alley, hoping to lose them in the darkness. I ducked behind a dumpster and tried to catch my breath, praying the figure wouldn't follow. But when I looked over my shoulder, I saw him, standing at the entrance of the alley, just staring at me. My heart nearly stopped. I didn't know what to do. I was frozen in place, fear washing over me. Then I bolted. I ran as fast as I could toward the nearest convenience store, not daring to look back. I burst through the door and asked the clerk to call the police. When the police arrived, they couldn't find anyone. The alley was empty, and the man had vanished. The officers told me that there had been similar complaints in the same area from other people the past few weeks. It could have been the same guy. I gave them the best description I possibly could give, and they left. Luckily, one of the cops was nice enough to drop me off at home in his car, so I didn't have to walk further down the road all alone at night. I haven't experienced anything bad since, and I'm waiting to hear for any updates on the case.